Madhavananda Das, and these are our daily adventures in Srimad Bhagavatam. Say a few prayers. Narayanam namaskrityam naram shaiva narotamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam Vedi Ramayane Shaiva Purane Bhadate Tata Adavante Chamadye Chahari Sarvatra Giyate Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yad Kripa Tamaham Vande Shri Gurum Dinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Paramananda He Madhava Padunga Luchi Makaranda Se Makaranda Panakori Anande Bolo Hari Hari Haringaname Vandavela Parikori Chakadola Se Chakadolanka Padaye Manamo Rahu Niranjare Manamo Niranjare Rahu Har Krishna Boli Jiva Jao Har Krishna Boli Jao Jiva Mote Dada Radha Dava Mote Dada Radha Dava Mote Dada Radha Dava Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Good morning, dear devotees from Sridham Mayapur. We're reading from Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam, the King of all literatures, Canto 3, Chapter 29, an explanation of pure devotional service by Lord Kapila Dev to his mother, Devahuti. This is our second session on text number 14. Sa eva bhakti yogakya ajyantika udarita yenati brajatri gunam madbhavo yopapadyate. By attaining the highest platform of devotional service, as I have explained, one can overcome the influence of the three modes of material nature and be situated in the transcendental stage, as is the Lord. So I'm going to jump ahead a little in the purport. We read the first paragraph yesterday. The material qualities of goodness, passion, and ignorance cannot affect the position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, he is called nirguna, free from all tinges of material qualities. Here the same fact is confirmed by Lord Kapila. One who is situated in pure devotional service is transcendentally situated, as is the Lord. Just as the Lord is unaffected by the influence of the material modes, so too are his pure devotees. One who is not affected by the three modes of material nature is called a liberated soul or Brahmabhuta soul. Brahmabhuta, Prasanatma, is the stage of liberation. Aham Brahmasmi, I am not this body. This is applicable only to the person who constantly engages in the devotional service of Krishna and is thus in the transcendental stage. He is above the influence of the three modes of material nature. Gora Graganya Gana Gotra Goloruharam Goranga Gura Chama Gopyada Kopa Briksham Gopala Gada Ratidam Yati Singha Gora Govinda Deshikavaram Satatam Namah Panchakopa Padibhishcha Kripa Sindhu Deva Chan Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhakta. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So good morning from Mayapur, dear devotees, with Madhupati Prabhu, nice to see you, and Manju Krishna Prabhu, Mahindra, and my old friend Sachinandan Prabhu. We used to travel together. Nice to see you here. We stole your Shampriya and Sachi Tanoy. You're here in the room with us right now. You know Sachinandan Prabhu, right? Shampriya. Yeah. Sachinandan Prabhu is online right now. Sachinandan from Los Angeles. Okay. Sachi Tanoy Prabhu is offering his obeisance to Sachinandan Prabhu. So in our last session, we spoke something about oneness in Krishna consciousness. And we're exploring that topic from the conception of devotion, oneness in devotion. Gaudiya Vaishnavas, they don't accept impersonalism, as we spoke about in a number of our sessions. They reject the liberation known as kaivalya, which they consider to be hellish. Rather, the devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu aspire for loving service, which is always personal and individual. So in this session, in our last session, we spoke something about the oneness of the sat-sisya, the bonafide disciple, and the Sadguru. And I want to continue that discussion with some more examples and some more thought about that. So in this verse, Lord Kapila Dev is speaking about Bhakti Yoga Ayantika. This Adyantika, by practicing Bhakti Yoga, one comes to Adyantika, the topmost platform, which he says is Mat Bhavaya Upapadyate. They attain to my transcendental stage, as Prabhupada says in the purport we were just reading today, that one who is situated in pure devotional service is transcendentally situated, as is the Lord. Just as the Lord is unaffected by the influence of the material modes, so too are his pure devotees. So it's a very important aspect of our philosophy. Yesterday, we spoke a little bit from Srila Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, where he speaks about Vishrambena Guru Seva, or how the disciple should become one with the Guru in service. And in that regard, we spoke about these two types of service, Sambrahma Seva and Vishramba Seva. Sambrahma Seva means service with awe and reverence. And there are many devotees who are afraid of Gurudev. There are many devotees who are afraid to come close to the sadhu, and they have great awe and reverence for him. And that's okay, that's one type of seva. But higher than that is Vishramba Seva. You may have many friends in school, and some of them may be afraid of you, and they shake when they see you, and they're folding their hands. And that's okay, they're your friend, but he's not really your goshti, he's not so intimate, he's not your dhruv, as someone who sometimes teases you and makes fun of you or something. That's Vishramba Seva. And in the spiritual world, we see in Ayodhya that Sambrahma Sakya Ras. It's Sakya Ras, but it's mixed with this Sambrahma, this awe and reverence. And therefore, Hanuman and the different associates of the Lord Ramachandra in Ayodhya, the Jambavan and others, they have some friendship with the Lord, but it's Sambrahma Sakya. They're a little afraid of him. Whereas in Vrindavan, it's Vishramba Seva. And the cowherd boys, sometimes they tease Krishna. Sometimes they challenge Krishna to a fight. And Sri Rama tells Krishna, look, you're not a big man. You're trying to impress us for saying so many things. Look, now you're in front of Sri Rama. And I'm going to defeat you. You better be humble. And Sri Rama challenges in that way. And sometimes Sri Rama defeats him. That's Vishramba Seva. And Krishna carries Sri Rama on his shoulders. It's inconceivable. The devotees in Ayodhya or Vaikuntha, they could never consider the Lord carrying them on their shoulders. Rather, Hanuman carries Lord Ramachandra on his shoulders. And Garuda carries Lord Vishnu upon his shoulders. But in Vrindavan, it's just the other way around. And Krishna carries Sridhama on his shoulders. And interestingly, Sanatana Goswami comments that Sridhama, his expansion becomes Garuda. So in Vaikuntha Leela, Garuda is carrying Lord Vishnu on his shoulders, but in that original form of in the spiritual world, Krishna carries him. It's the other way around. And so yesterday we gave a few examples of this, one of which was Minikaitan Ramdas, and how he was such an intimate devotee of Lord Nityananda that he became offended when this priest named Gunarnava Mishra didn't receive him properly. He wasn't offended for himself, but he was so Vishramba, so one with Lord Nityananda that he considered that you're not receiving me properly, you should. It's not a disrespect to me, but it's a disrespect to Lord Nityananda. So this is Vishramba Sakya, this is Vishramba Seva, this is oneness in Krishna consciousness. And in that regard, we spoke about how the disciple becomes one with Gurudev, and how Krishna, Rupa Namashrita Vishta, he enters the heart of that disciple, that devotee who takes shelter of Krishna's form and Krishna's name. And then we spoke at length from an article by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta where he explains how the individual soul is a separable constituent of the Guru. How the disciple has to come to the platform of divinity to be able to render service. And that platform of divinity, that's Vishramba Seva, that's Atyantika, that's the highest platform, which is Madbhavaya Upapadyate. Someone attains to that platform, Lord Kapila says in this verse, through the process of bhakti. So I'd like to speak to you a little something today from our next issue of Bindu, which, by the way, if anybody's subscribing, it may come out a little bit late. I'm having some troubles with our software, so it may come out come out on Tuesday or Wednesday. Usually we try to have it come out the day before Ekadasi, which would be today, but it may be a day or two late. So this time. So this is from Bhakti Ratnakar. It's an article we're going to print there. We're titling it from the Bengali, Mahaprabhu Bhakta Dware Sikshadan. How Mahaprabhu teaches through his devotees' example. And this is something Thakur Bhaktivinoda also speaks about in a very similar way in the first chapter of his Harinam Chintamani. Srila Narahari Chakravarti in Bhakti Ratnakar describes Ramananda Dwari Kanda Peradarpana Se Damodara Dwarinira Peksha Parakase. Through the mouth of Ramananda Roy, Ramananda Dwari Kandar Peradarpanase, he taught us how to conquer lust through Krishna Katha, through being so absorbed in the Lord that Ramananda Roy was massaging with oil the naked bodies of young dancing girls, but his mind was like wood. It didn't even affect him whatsoever. And Damadware Dware, through Damodar, through Sarup Damodar Goswami, Nirapeksha Parakase, he manifested, or he taught us how to remain free from all desires. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Bhagavan. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur, as we mentioned, also describes the same thing, that through the mouth of his devotees, he taught us many things. He doesn't have to do that, but because those devotees are none different from him, they've attained this platform of Achantika, Madbhavaya Upapadyate. They've attained this transcendental stage where they're considered to be non-different from the Lord. Narahari Chakravarti Thakur goes on to explain, Haridasa Dware Sahi Shnuta Jana Ilaha Sanatana Rupa Dware Dainya Pakashila. Through Haridas Thakur, Dwari means literally a gate, or through him, Sahisnuta Janaila, he taught tolerance and patience. And through Rupa and Sanatana Goswami, Dainya Prakashila, he taught us humility. Jitendriya Nirapeksha, Sahisnuta Dainya, ācāryas Varivyakta, Koila Sri Chaitanya. Through his devotees in this way, Mahaprabhu taught Jitendriya, sense control, Nirapeksha, freedom from desire, Sahisnuta, tolerance, Dainya, humility, etc. But some of the people, they couldn't understand these devotees. And they thought, oh, this, if we see someone who's very humble, sometimes the tendency is we want to exploit them. Once one devotee, ISKCON devotee, came to see our Guru Maharaj, and he spoke with him sometime, and later he left. And Guru Maharaj, I spoke with him afterwards, and he was very angry. He said, this fellow, he's trying to cheat me. He's trying to trick me. He thinks because I'm very simple that he can do this to me. But Krishna's devotees, although they're very, very simple, they take shelter of Krishna. And because of that, you can't fool them. You might be very expert in pointing out so many different conspiracies. You might be so much expert in pointing out the faults in so many different people because you're an expert judge of character, or at least you think you are. And the Brij Basis, you might criticize Mother Yashoda because, I mean, didn't she recognize that that woman, Putana, was a demoness? What's wrong with them? How could she not recognize her? And several times in Braj Leela, the Brij Basis didn't recognize Vatsasura, Palambasura. They didn't recognize different personalities who were demons. Why? Because they're simple. They depend on Krishna. Now you might think, Guru Maharaj used to say sometimes, someone thinks if I'm simple, if I'm humble, then I'll be cheated. It's just the other way around. If you depend on your own intelligence, you'll always be cheated. Because our intelligence is not so good. But if we depend on Krishna, and if we're simple, and even we see some woman who comes and says, oh, I want to nurse your baby. Oh, I'm a calf and I want to play with the other calves. Oh, I'm a cowherd boy and I want to come and play with the boys. Like Vatsasura, or Palambasura, or Putana. The Brij Basis are so simple. Oh, it's a devotee. They want to worship Krishna. They want to play with Krishna. Very good. They have no problem. But they're dependent completely on Krishna. And then Krishna reveals, Krishna solves the problems every time. But people who depend on their intelligence, they can't recognize the devotee. Vaishnava Chiniti Naidivara Shakati. It's described by Jagadananda Pandit that even the demigods try to grasp this. It's just like in this room, there's a number of ants running around on the floor. Now these ants, they have some sense perception of what's going on around them. But what can they realize? The people who are walking around here are just giants, like moving mountains. And they might hear some sound, but they can't understand the class that's going on, the katha that's going on. Their perception is so dull compared to the humans in the room. And what to speak of if we compare this to our sense perception and the sense perception of the devatas. It's millions of times greater because Indra can perceive everything everywhere. He has this omniscience. So also can Varuna, he can perceive wherever there's water. So also can Agni, he can perceive wherever there's fire. And there's fire in everybody's body, the fire of digestion. Agni can perceive that. Vayu can perceive wherever there's air. There's also air in everybody's body. So there's sarvagya in that sense, not in the sense that Krishna is, but there's sarvagya in the sense that they can perceive through everyone's body, and they can't recognize who's a devotee, who's a Vaishnava, who's not. So sometimes when someone comes in touch with the devotee and sees that they're humble, that they're tolerant, they think, oh, it's a second-class person. The only people who are really high class are the people who have a very straight back and hold their head high. and demand respect. That's really high class. Sometimes we think like that. But Narahari Chakravarti, speaking about these devotees of Mahaprabhu and how Mahaprabhu manifested himself through them and empowered those devotees, he speaks about Rupa and Sanatana Goswami. Sanatana Rupa Dainya Napari Bhujite Murka Gana Iti Tarka Kori Nanamate. Sanatana Rupa Dainya Napari Bhujite. The common people, Murka Gana, these foolish people, they can't understand Napari Bhujite, the dainya, the humility of Rupa and Sanatana. And so Tarka Kori Nanamati, they get in some arguments about it. Some of them may say, actually Rupa and Sanatana are very advanced. And some may say, no, they're not advanced. They're so humble. They're just, they're acting like a very low person. That's not the behavior of a great personality. They'll think like, believe me, as one of my godbrothers once told a devotee, Hare Krishna, said, Mataji, this person's not really guru. Speaking about someone she had faith in. He said, believe me, I've seen some guru. I know guru. Which is a little bit of a shocking statement to me, because our Guru Maharaj said, you haven't seen guru. And if you think you've seen guru, it means you definitely haven't seen guru, unless you realize it's Swarupa guru. So these people, Narahari Chakravarti condemns them. Mahagura Naraka Jaite Jara Sada Sekaruka Aichikuta Kadi Aparada. He said, let all these people go to hell. Because they're wanting to enter into this kutarkadi, this wrangling, quarreling with different people. And in this way, they're doing offenses against the Vaishnavas. So we should be very, very careful with the Vaishnavas, because Rupa Nama Ashrita Vishta. Sanatana Goswami says, Rupa Nama Ashrita Vishta. That when someone begins chanting the holy name, Rupa Goswami describes Krishneti Yeshagaritam Manasadriyeta Dikshasya Chet Pranati Vishya Bhajanta Nisham. Someone's chanting, you should be respect to them. Because Rupa Namashrita Vishta, Krishna's inside their body, Krishna's on their tongue. I'm giving respect to Krishna. I give respect to all the sannyasis. I give respect to all the Vaishnavas, the big Vaishnavas, the small Vaishnavas, the persons who used to be Vaishnavas, the persons who will become Vaishnavas in the future. Hoi chena hoi bena Prabhu jata dasa. The poet Devaki Nandandas, he prays, Ahoy Chena Ahoy Bena. All the Vaishnavas, all the people who used to be Vaishnavas. Sometimes we talk with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I joined a few years after him. We remember, what happened to this devotee? What happened to that one? Oh, nobody's heard anything about him now. He's gone. Oh, this one I heard he became a Christian. This one became a Buddhist, or this one did this or that. And you feel a little sad. But Devaki Nandan says, Hoy Chena Hoy Bena Prabhu Jatadas. With straw in my teeth, I offer respect to all those persons. They used to be a devotee. They lived in the LA temple for 2 weeks. My God, they're such an exalted person. I give respect to them. Because Rupa Namashrita Vishta, Krishna's entered into their body. I'm giving respect to that. Krishneti Yeshagaritam Manasadhyeta. I must give respect to them. And Hoy Chena, Hoy Bena means all the persons who are not yet Vaishnavas will become Vaishnavas. Hello. That means everybody. I give respect to everyone. But Deho Nata Jata Jata, Bhaktivinoda says, according to their situation. And someone who's left Krishna consciousness, they join for 2 weeks, and then they come back after 20 years. It's not the same as someone who's been a devotee for 20 years. Someone can say, well, I joined in 1975. But you were gone until 1995. It's not the same. We give respect, deho nata jata jata, according to the person's particular situation. Now, this is very beautifully described in Chaitanya Bhagavat. In the pastime in Madhya Lila chapter 13, we hear about the Jagai and Madai, who are considered to be two of the most heinous, terrible sinners in the history of the universe. What's his name? Chitragupta, the scribe of Yamaraj, who's so empowered, he's able to write down everybody's sin. He was getting writer's cramp. He said, I can't keep up with the sins of these guys. I've got all the scribes writing. There's a whole library of sins that they've committed. We can't keep up. But when they became devotees, Mahaprabhu told all the other devotees, Edu yere papi hena nakoriha mane edu yare papamuni dahilun apane. Don't consider these two sinners. You know? Don't think, oh, this guy, I heard they raped someone's daughter, they stole money from someone, they killed someone. They're not sinners. Don't think like that. Mahaprabhu says, I personally burned all their pap, all their sin to ashes. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in one article in Sajjana Toshini, he says there's different types of fault that we may find with the devotee. You may find fault with them for something they did in the past before they joined. But don't do that. That's an offense, because that devotee, now they're chanting Hare Krishna. Apiche sudaracharo bhajate mamananya bhakt. They're a sadhu. The second reason you may find fault with them, he says, is that there's still some lingering sin going on. They can't control their senses. They're still addicted to sinful activities. But Prabhupada said that they're standing in the shower, if they're taking shelter of the holy name, still we give respect to that person. Maybe from a little bit of a distance. Maybe we don't hear from that person. But they're a durachari sadhu. So eva mantavya, Krishna says emphatically in the 9th chapter of the Gita. Emphatically says they're sadhus. Mahaprabhu then explains, Sarva dehi mui karon, balon chalon kana, tabi deha patajabe, mui chali jana. He says, I am in the body of all living entities. Sarva dehi mui karon. I'm there. Balon chalon kan. It's I who make them move and make them speak and eat. And when I leave that body, then it dies. He says, Iha jani eduyere shakale Vaishnava. Understanding this, all you Vaishnavas, dekiba obey the drishti jena tumi sab. You should see this Jagai and Madai as one of you, and don't discriminate against them. Oh, this is a Russian Vaishnava. We don't like Russian Vaishnavas. We only like American Vaishnavas, or Bengali Vaishnavas are much better. We don't like Chinese Vaishnavas, or this or that. Don't see like this. If we see like this, we'll commit a great offense. With the Vaishnavas, we should see Rupānūga Vishta, that they're chanting the holy name, they're taking shelter of Krishna's form. That means Krishna's entering their body. And so I must give respect to them. Mahaprabhu goes on to explain. Suna e agya mora, jeho amara e duyere, shradakori, jediba ahara, ananta brahmanda maje, jatamadu vaishe, shehoya krishnera mukhe, dile prema rase. He said, really, Jehao Amar, if you're really mine, if you really belong to me, then Suno e Agyamor, you're going to listen to my instruction, what I say. He told them that whatever with faith, E Duijer, these two persons, Shadakori Je Diba Ahar, whatever you give these two persons to eat, that's just like offering honey to the mouth of Krishna. Because Krishna eats through the mouth of his devotees. Don't think, oh, this is Jagai and Madai, and they're drinking alcohol, they're like this and that. Mahaprabhu says, don't think like that. Edui janere je koriba parihas. Eduyera aparade tar sarvanas. And if anybody makes fun of these two, they'll be ruined because of that offense. Hoya sarvanas, everything will be spoiled. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta comments in his purport, he speaks about a certain type of nyaya, logic, which is nagna matrika nyaya. The logic that your mother was naked in her childhood. When your mother was 1 year old, 2 years old, she was running around, little naked girl. And so she should continue to, someone said that she'll continue to remain naked, even though she's become the mother of so many children. So don't think like that. That was a previous time. It's a different thing now. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he says that in this regard, we should discuss this Apichet Sudharacharo verse, which we've already done. And he also says we should think about this verse from Upadeshamrita. Jistai Swabhava Janitaya Vapusascha Dosha Na Prakritattvamiha Bhakta Janasya Pashyat Gangamba Samna Kalubu Buddhathena Pankaya Brahma Dravatvama Bhagachati Niradharmai. Jistai Swabhava Janitaya Vapusascha Dosha. By some loka drishti, or some common vision, you may see some fault in a devotee, some dosha. But don't see it. Na prakritatvam. That person, na prakritatvam, iha bhakta janasya pasya. You should understand, this person is a devotee of Krishna. Krishna's entered into their body. They're atyantika. When, to some extent or another, they've come to the highest platform of human life. Brahmabhuta prasanatma. They become non-different from the Lord to some extent or another. Madbhavaya upapadyate. They've attained that state where the Krishna comes in their heart. So we have to give respect to them. Gangam basam nakalubu buddha fena pankaya. I was meditating on this verse this morning. I took bath in the Jalangi. And this verse describes that you may see a fault in a devotee. Oh my God. He was picking his nose. That's really disgusting. What kind of devotee is that? And then, oh my God, he put his hand in his bead bag afterwards. I can't look. He's not a good Vaishnava. But Rupa Goswami says, Gangambasam na kalubhud buddha fena pankaya. Just in the same way, the Ganga, Buddha means by bubbles. And fena means foam, and panka means mud. In the same way, when you go to take bath, like this morning, as I said, there's a lot of mud in the water, there's some foam, there's some bubbles in the water, and you think, oh, this is not good to take bath. But Rupa Goswami says, no, it's good. Don't even hesitate. This is sacred water. It's not an ordinary thing. And so similarly, the body of such a devotee who's taken initiation, Krishna says, Diksha Kali Bhakta Kori Atma Samarpana. That when they take initiation, I enter into the body of that devotee. And therefore we give respect to the disciples of a guru. Because we consider that personality, that great Mahatma who initiated it, now he's partly present in the form of that disciple. We give respect to the Prabhupada disciples in this way. At the same time, we can also note, however, that Sanatana Goswami in Hari Bhakti Vilas, in the first Vilas, he says, Advaitam cha parityagya. He says that one should not think that now I'm initiated, and Gurudev and I were non-different. Don't think like that. You may, like we were speaking about Manikirtana Ramdas, he's realized that. He knows that he's non-different from Lord Nityananda Prabhu. But it's not something that we can imitate. But such a devotee, when someone who is initiated by Srila Prabhupada, they've gotten mantra from Srila Prabhupada personally. They had personal association with Srila Prabhupada. As we discussed in our last session from Harinam Chintamani, Bhaktivinoda says that the Shakti from that great Mahatma will enter into the body of that devotee when they spend time with them. So someone who had association with Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada's entered into their body to some extent or another. I give so much respect to that. Satsvarup Maharaj once came to Jagannath Puri. I think it was his last visit to India. And he came on one of our parikramas. And on the first day, I had this dilemma. We'd gone to Sweta Ganga. And Dhanadhar Maharaj was there, and Satsvarup Maharaj was there, and some other senior devotees. And I was the chosen speaker. So I'm a very junior person, especially Satsvarup Maharaj is one of the most senior persons in our movement. And it's an awkward thing for a very junior person to speak in front of a senior person. So at that time, I spoke some words of appreciation. And I told the devotees that I'm very unfortunate. Although I was living in Colorado when Srila Prabhupada came to Denver, it's even possible that I was in Denver, Colorado when Prabhupada was there. But I had no idea about Srila Prabhupada. I had no idea about Prabhupada until after he'd left this world. And so I'm not so fortunate to get to meet Srila Prabhupada. I said, but today, I feel like I've gotten to meet Srila Prabhupada through Satsvarup Maharaj's association, through his being here. And that's not just some words of flattery. This is the word of Shastra. And even that person may be Jagai and Madai, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was telling the devotees, you should see them as a manifestation of myself. And when the devotees heard Mahaprabhu's words, what did they do? Suniya Vaishnava Gana Kande Mahapreme Jagai Madai Prati Kore Paraname. When they heard, Shunya means to hear, Vaishnava Gana, when all of them heard, Kande means they started crying. All of them started crying, Mahapremi, in ecstatic love. And Jagai Madai Prati Kore Paranam, they all offered obeisances to Jagai and Madai. They didn't think, who are these guys? Okay, they've become devotees, something, I don't know, I have some doubts about that. But I came to Mahaprabhu long before they did, and they committed so many offenses. They threw a pot in the head of Nityananda Prabhu. They've done so many terrible things. How can you? They're a Vaishnava, but they're on a lower platform. I'm on a higher platform. They didn't think like that. Brahma Bhuta Prasanatmana Sochatina Kamsati is Prabhupada's quoting in the purport today. They saw they're on the Brahma Bhuta platform. Atyantika, as Lord Kapila Dev is saying in this verse, they've attained the highest platform of Madhbhavaya. They've attained the transcendental stage, the same platform as the Lord, because the Lord has entered into their body. And for such a disciple then, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he says that that disciple is a separable constituent of the Guru. The disciple, unless he accepts Guru to be the ground as well as the legs, he can't walk at all. He can't move. Gurudev is everything for that devotee. So Gurudev enters into the body of that devotee. I'd like to share with you a story or two in regards to this. The first is from the life of Ramanujacharya. Maybe we'll even have a couple of stories, 2 or 3 from, I don't know if we have enough time today. But once there was one young man who came to Ramanuja, and he said, Maharaj, I've heard all about your glories, and I want to serve you. I want to become your disciple, please. And Ramanuja asked him, what kind of family do you come from? Oh, I was born in a Mishra family, high-class Brahmin family. And then Ramanuja told him, oh, you want to do some service? He says, yes, Maharaj. If I can serve you, then I'll come to the platform of Brahmabhuta. I'll come to the platform of Dhyantika, the highest platform, by serving you. So Ramanuja said, yes, what you're saying is true. Because you can only become liberated by doing service. But if you want to serve me, then first of all, you have to stay here, and you have to do whatever I ask of you. That young Brahmin boy was so happy. He said, oh, Guru Maharaj, thank you so much for accepting me. You tell me, whatever you want me to do, I'll do it. And Ramanuja saw that this young man was actually very sincere. And so he told him, he said, I have some resolution in my mind that I want to purify myself by drinking the water that's washed the feet of a pure-hearted Brahmin every day. Every day I want to drink that water. Now, by the mercy of the Lord, you've come here, so here's my order to you. This is your service. Every day, you let me wash your feet and drink that water. And only if you do this will you actually be able to render real service to me. Could you imagine? Anapayani Radha. Your Guru Maharaj says, Anapayani, I have some service I want you to do for me. Would you be able to do it? Huh? So by nature, that young Brahmin boy was very humble, but he couldn't refuse the order of his Gurudev. And so from that time on, every day he was there. When Ramanuja would return from his noon bath in the Kaveri River, he would wash the feet of that young boy, his own disciple, and he would sprinkle it on his head and drink some of it. Now one day, Ramanuja, it happens to Hare Krishna devotees, he'd gone to take prasadam in the home of one of his disciples, and then there was a long discussion afterwards, and then he went to take bath in the river after that, and the devotees were speaking so many things, and Ramanuja was discussing with them. And by the time he came back to the ashram, it was very late at night. And when he arrived back there, he found that everybody was taking rest already. But the young boy was sitting outside the ashram, this disciple who Ramanuja had initiated. And Ramanuja said, hey, you're a brahmachari. What are you waiting up so long for? Have you eaten anything yet? And that disciple of Ramanuja said, Guru Maharaj, how could I think of eating? I haven't done my service yet today for you. Could we do it? And Ramanuja became so pleased, and he embraced him. He said, you are a sat-sisya. You're just absorbed only in thoughts of service, and you've attained perfection. This is ajantika. Madhvaya, because he understands the mood of Ramanuja and he's accepting the instruction of Ramanuja. It wasn't his desire. It wasn't that he didn't show up and say, Maharaj, I think you'd be blessed if you drink the water from my feet every day. It wasn't his suggestion. That was horrible for him. He doesn't want that. But because Diksha Kali Bhakta Kori Atma Samadhi, he's become one with Gurudev. This is Vishwambhena Guru Seva. He's become one. He understands Madhvaya, the mood of Gurudev. That's ajantika. That's the highest platform. Very, very difficult thing to understand. We can't imitate such behavior. Another example is there, several examples in the life of Ramanuja. Once Goshtipurna came to visit Ramanuja. Now Goshtipurna was one of the Diksha gurus of Ramanuja. It's a little complicated to explain, but anyway, he had several different gurus. He gave him different mantras and different instructions and things. So Goshtipurna was one of the spiritual masters of Ramanuja. Now, Goshtipurna was a little bit of an angry person. When he came to visit Ramanuja, there were many of Ramanuja's disciples around him. Radhanath Maharaj personally told me this story, a very wonderful story. And when those disciples of Ramanuja saw that Goshtipurna had come, oh, this is a big thing. This is Param Gurudev. And when Ramanuja saw his guru, he fell down, dandavat, fell down flat in the hot sand. It was the middle of one of the hottest days of the summer in South India, and that sand was burning the body of Ramanuja. You could smell the smell of burning flesh, because Ramanuja didn't have a shirt on or anything. He just had a gamsha on. He fell down in the sand. His body was burning. Now the tradition in the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya is that when the disciple offers obeisances to Guru, he stays down. He doesn't get up from offering obeisances until Gurudev gives his ashirvad, his blessings. And so Ramanuja was laying there in the hot sand, and you could smell his flesh burning. And the disciples, Ramanuja's disciples, are becoming so disturbed. Oh my God, Guru Maharaj, but they can't say anything because Goshtipurna is there. Goshtipurna is Param Gurudev, and if I say something to him, if I criticize him, I'm going to go to hell. I can't do that. So they were quite. Finally, one of Ramanuja's disciples couldn't control himself anymore, and he spoke up and he said, "How can you do this? Let him get up. He's burning. This is terrible." And then Goshtipurna said, "Yes, Ramanuja, you can get up." And he gave his blessing to him. And then Gosipurna turned to Ramanuja, and he pointed out that devotee who chastised him. Gosipurna told Ramanuja, you keep this one close to you. You should have this one cooked for you. This is a real sat-sisya. He's a real, genuine disciple because he's ready to commit an offense to his Param Gurudev for you. He's ready to go to hell for you. He's so close in his heart to you. He's non-different from you. Once Govinda, Ramanuja's cousin, and who's also the disciple of Ramanuja, he was given the service to make the bed for his Gurudev every day. And one day some of the devotees came in the room and they found Govinda laying down on Ramanuja's bed. The Hari Bhakti Vilas says, that's a big offense. You don't wear your Gurudev's shoes. You don't sit on his chair. You don't lie on his bed. It's a big offense. Sometimes Guru may tell you, just like Srila Prabhupada told Jadharani, oh, you can stand on the chair. Jadharani had to get up to see some picture or something. Prabhupada said, for service, you can stand on my head. Jadharani was very close to Srila Prabhupada. So the devotees were disturbed. How is this going? And they went and they complained to Ramanuja, you know, Govinda, he's laying on your bed. What kind of disciple is that? And Ramanuja called for Govinda. Hey, Govinda, is this true? Were you laying on my bed? Govinda said, yes, Guru Maharaj. I was laying on your bed. And Ramanuja said, you know the result of this? It's a great offense. You're going to go to hell for this? And Govinda said, yes, Guru Maharaj, I know. I'll go to hell for that. Why were you doing this? And Govinda said, Guru Maharaj, how else can I make sure the bed was made properly? That it was soft enough for you? I had to test it. Otherwise, it might not be soft. Let me go to hell. I don't mind. This is for you. So this is Ajantika. This is the highest platform of bhakti. This is Vishrambena Guru Seva, where someone becomes one with the Guru in the heart, not in the sense that the Mayavadi is considered, but one with Gurudev in intention. And this is so important, so wanted. We come to the platform of Mat Bhavaya that Lord Kapila is speaking about in this verse today. So I'm going to stop there. We'll go ahead and read the verse again today. Lord Kapila is telling his mother, Saeva Bhakti Yogakya Ajantika Hudarita Yenatid Raja Trigunam Mad Bhava Yopapadyate. By attaining the highest platform of devotional service, as I've explained, one can overcome the influence of the three modes of material nature and be situated in a transcendental stage, as is the Lord. So again, this is oneness in devotion, oneness in Krishna consciousness. So we'll stop there. If the devotees have any reflections or questions or anything, I'd like to hear from them. Nice to see Brajabanita, Natalia, Hare Krishna, Alexandra, Hare Krishna, Advaita Chandra Prabhu, Aditi. Nice to see Aditi. Hare Krishna, Aditi. Nice to see you. She's asking how we're doing. I was thinking of you recently, Aditi, because there's a friend of ours who's joined us who's not here today. Generally, she's here. Her name's Lynn, and she works in a hospice. And she's just a brand new devotee, only been a devotee for a few months. And I was thinking to put you in touch with you, so you should help me with that and be friends with her. Maybe I'll contact with you later or something. Natalia has written something. Thank you very much. It's very, very hard to realize in a real situation that Krishna could enter the body of someone like Jagai and Madai. Only by the mercy of Guru can appear a wish to overcome all the previous sanskars, just to follow this mood of forgiveness for the pleasure of Guru only, because our own consciousness is against forgiveness. Yes, material consciousness means envy. Material consciousness means that we want to become great by pushing someone else down. And material consciousness means that we find fault in all the devotees. But we should understand, Rupa Namashrita Vishta, that if someone's taken initiation, if someone's worshiping the deity, if someone's chanting Krishna's name, Krishna's entered into their body. It's amazing. And I give wholehearted respect to that person. It's a little hard for us in our society because socially, we're not so sophisticated. Our depth of social understanding is very shallow. We don't understand these things in a deep way, and therefore sometimes it's hard for us in our movement to give respect to the children, to give respect. It's a Mataji, she's a housewife. I want to give respect to the sannyasis. But be careful. We don't know who that Vaishnava is. And I've personally seen, in my humble opinion, I'll say it very strongly, some of the most advanced devotees I've seen in our movement are those humble housewives who are just in the background doing something. And we've seen amazing things with them. We were speaking something about it yesterday. Krishna Consciousness was speaking about it in the class. And some of the different devotees we've seen, the Pushkaraksha Prabhu's wife, who our Guru Maharaj said she actually had darshan of Srimati Radharani and Krishna. They came to her at the end of her life. But she'd never lived in an ashram. She didn't know shlokas. She wasn't a big devotee. She wasn't chanting 1 lakh a day. She wasn't doing anything big. She was just a housewife, a very, very simple devotee. But by her simplicity, she pleased Guru Maharaj. And she came to a very high platform. And similarly, you told the story of who? Mother Ratna Ranjini Mataji, who had also, at the end of her, was another very, very simple devotee. Nobody took her very seriously. She's just cleaning things and cooking and serving the devotees. But at the end of her life, she was also sometimes crying in ecstasy and having realizations about her swarup, a very, very high thing. So we should be very, very careful and understand that anyone who's chanting, anyone who's been accepted by Gurudev, means we should give respect to them. Now, it becomes a little more awkward when we see that a devotee, what to do when a devotee does something wrong. Then, durteki dandavat, I offer my obeisances, but from a distance. And I think anyway, they've done something wrong, but that's just because of some previous karma or something which is going away because they're initiated. They're chanting Hare Krishna, and I don't look at those things. I look at the good things. I look to see they're here in the temple, they're chanting, they're doing book distribution, they're an amazing personality. I don't see, maybe they've committed some fault now, but they're a devotee. They're chanting. That's what's important. Maybe they want to vote for Mr. Trump and you can't stand Mr. Trump. Or maybe they want to vote for Mr. Biden and you don't like Mr. Biden, you like Mr. Trump. Why see that? Don't see that. We'll make some offense. We should see this is a devotee. This is part of Gurudev's family. They've entered into Krishna's samsara, Krishna's family, through the samsara of Gurudev. Gurudev's samsara, Gurudev's family. It's very important. So I want to stop there then. There's no more comments right now online. Does anybody here have any reflections or questions on subjects in Prabhu?
So thank you, Prabhu. There's one thing that caught my attention, and it was that the example that you just gave about Ramanuja and the disciple who couldn't handle it, to see his guru being laid down, and then how do you dare to do that? That the disciple is ready to go to hell. And then the guru told him, oh, keep this one, because he's a real devotee. He's ready to go to hell. Now, how can you balance that a little bit? Because we have seen many things previously in the history of ISKCON, how many splits we have with different devotees, going to this mat or that group or that. And then later on, there was conflicts and they will fight each other and they will, on behalf of their guru, they will speak really strong. How can you actually balance it? Because many might be hearing, oh, actually, I've been doing right. But he might not necessarily. He might not necessarily be right, but at the same time, yes, that's a unique, particular situation that happened. But can you say something?
What a deep comment. Thank you very much. So important. Yeah, sometimes there's the attitude, I'm our guru, Jagat Guru. My Gurudev's very great, your guru's not so good. And then we may hear this story and say, yes, and I'm going to chastise a Prabhupada disciple because he didn't give respect properly to my Gurudev, or this or that. And we should be very, very careful. This kind of mood of a devotee, it's not something coming from their mind. In the story we told, Goshti Purna was pleased with his grand disciple, that disciple of Ramanuja. But that disciple of Ramanuja wasn't thinking, oh, by philosophy, by Shastra, this or that. He wasn't on the mundane platform either of thinking, this is my Gurudev, and how can someone disrespect my Gurudev? He wasn't thinking like that. This is what Rupa Goswami describes as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is the kirtan of Mahaprabhu. It's Udgurna. Udgurna means like a volcano. And the holy name of Krishna and these words of Ramanuja's disciples, similarly, they're not coming from his mind. They're coming from deep in his heart. And it's just erupting out. He couldn't control himself. And that's a very, very high platform. So someone who's listening and may think, well, I'm on that platform. All I can say is sadhu sabadan. Be very, very careful. Be very careful. Because if you're not on that platform, then you may just spoil your spiritual life. You may end up going to hell. If you're actually on that platform, it'll just come out of you. You won't be able to control yourself, and it'll just automatically come out. And you'll see it'll be a manifestation of your Suddha Sattva, your Vishuddha Sattva, or the platform of beyond the modes of material nature. For such a devotee, it's not, for many of us, we become angry because I identify with my Gurudev because he's the best Guru, because they gave initiation to me, so he must be the best. And it's like someone who likes their baseball team. I like the LA Dodgers or something because I'm an LA person. And so it's the best team. And that's mundane, that's in the modes of nature. And this is not Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma. This is not this platform of Jantika, this topmost platform that we've been speaking about. Is that okay?
Yes. Remember the example of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta when he was a child, and the Guru, Diksha Guru
Vihari Goswami once put his feet on Bhaktivinoda Thakur's head, and small Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, Bhima Prasad Datta at the time, started chastising him. Don't you know who Bhaktivinoda is? You can't do that to him. And he chastised him. He transgressed this kind of etiquette. But don't think that we can just cheaply do that and imitate that. It will destroy our society. We should be very, very careful. Madhupati Prabhu has given a comment. He said, you mentioned how it's difficult to give respect to children. And he tells a little story. Once, he says, I took Urmila Mataji's grandson on a tour in Budapest, and we had a great time. Afterwards, I told Urmila Mataji that my attitude towards devotee children is concealed respect, because open respect is not good for them. I remember in Los Angeles once, we were standing on the street with some other devotee, and one Guru Kuli boy came by. He's like about 6 or 8 years old. And I told the devotees, I said, hey, let's offer obeisances to him. And so we got down on the sidewalk, and the little boy became so disturbed, he started crying. It wasn't right. We felt really from our heart, we wanted to be respectful to that little boy. But Madhupati was pointing out, he said, better to offer concealed respect, because open respect is not good for them. He goes on. He says, however, it takes a lot to be born in a Vaishnava family. Therefore, they should be respected, even though in a concealed way. Urmila Mataji confirmed my understanding. What a nice comment, Madhupati. Thank you. Appreciate that. Anybody else here have any reflection, or comments, questions, or anything? Anapani Radha. She's going to yell really loud so everybody can hear her.
Thank you so much for this wonderful verses and commentaries from Chaitanya Bhagavata about how Mahaprabhu, he ordered that nobody should consider Jagai and Madai sinners anymore and should respect them. And it's really amazing description, and also how devotees, they were so happy to hear it, and they offer their obeisances. It's so beautiful. It's such a beautiful example, and also for the stories about Ramanuja Acharya's disciples. This is so, yes, so beautiful. All these 3 stories, beautiful. Although that one with the washing feet is always difficult.
You're not ready for that?
With the washing feet.
I was going to write to Bhakti Vigyamars and tell him something. What's that? At least the plate.
But it's his situation, because he has a proper mood, a particular mentality of servant of his spiritual master, and this is different thing, of course.
Okay.
For these jokes, they are not suitable.
Okay. Anybody else such a Krishna? Okay. So we're going to ask now for Anapani Radha to go around with the camera. First of all, we're going to show you Anapani Radha. You get the blessing of seeing her. That's Anapani Radha. Everybody's angry
But I can't
with
see
her.
anybody.
Okay, now you can take this around and show all of the devotees. And then you get it. Don't forget it.
Okay. Hi, Krishna.
Yes, Krishna coming. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki
Haribo.
Shyam Priya Mataji ki jai ho. Bolo Giriraj Maharaj ki jai. Bolo Giriraj Maharaj ki jai. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Samaveda Bhakta-vrinda ki jai. Vansha Kalpatarubhishcha Kripa Sindhu Bheva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo